Joining me right now is Louisiana Congressman, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. We've got a lot to get to. I want to ask you about Russia and China. But first, let's talk about these explosive new emails and the gain of function research, which Anthony Fauci first said that it's absolutely not true. There was no funding of gain of function research. And in fact, now he's backtracking and saying, oh, yes, we were working with Chinese scientists to study these things. Your reaction to these emails?
Yeah, good morning, Maria. There's some very alarming things we're seeing in these emails. And of course, they just got dropped a few days ago. But I saw, like you did, back in February of 2020, where Dr. Fauci was acknowledging or was getting emails sent to him saying that there was a real distinct possibility that this virus started in the lab in Wuhan, which many of us were saying over a year ago. And we were demanding investigations, Maria, over a year ago into the origin of the virus. And we were being shut down by Democrats and the media. You think about this. You had a lot of the social media platforms blocking people who were suggesting that it started in the lab. This gain of function issue, and, you know, Rand Paul's been going after this for a long time. Again, been called a lot of names. Turns out may be true. Masks, a lot of questions about the effectiveness of masks that you purchase commercially. All of this in these emails. We need to have a hearing on this, Maria. We need to get to the bottom of this. Dr. Fauci needs to be brought in under oath to answer questions about this. We've been calling on Pelosi to do this. They've been covering up for China and frankly, for a lot of these other questions that we've been raising, just calling people names, conspiracy theorists and all this. Turns out it all might be true.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got one email here from Christian Anderson from Scripps, and she writes to Fauci on January 31st, 2020. Okay, January 2020. She writes, the unusual features of the virus make up a really small part of the genome, so one has to look really closely at all the sequences to see that some of the features potentially look engineered. Okay, she writes that in an email in January 2020. The entire year, we heard Anthony Fauci say it's unlikely that it was probably a bat to a human. And meanwhile, he had this from his colleagues that they clearly raised their hand and said, no, this looks engineered. Where is this going? What should we think about in terms of, look, China is clearly culpable, but President Biden has not even asked Xi Jinping about the origins of the coronavirus yet. I mean, I've been raising my hand about this now since Inauguration Day. Why does Biden continually roll over for communist China?
Well, that's a great question. And of course, he won't answer that, and the mainstream media won't ask him that question. But going back to that email, I saw that very same email, and it was alarming because, again, it points out a distinct possibility that this was engineered in a lab, not transferred from bat to human, which is all we were being told by the scientists. They were saying, don't even think about this idea that it could have been engineered in a lab. But also, and if you go back, the President Trump's coronavirus task force, from reports I've seen, even Mark Meadows, President Trump's chief of staff, said just the other day, they were not even told by Dr. Fauci about emails like that, where Dr. Fauci is being told by other scientists, wait a minute, we're looking closer at this thing, and we need to because it could very well be engineered. He never shared that from what people in the Trump White House said with other people on the coronavirus task force. This was a task force President Trump put together to get the bottom of this. That was before we had shut down America, before we had seen the global pandemic be called out. Those could have saved lives. Those questions being answered could have saved lives. We need to get to the bottom of this. We need hearings on this specific question.
And he knew that the NIH sent money to EcoHealth Alliance, and EcoHealth Alliance sent money to the Wuhan lab. And he said it's not true. The question has to be, did he perjure himself and lie under oath? So we're going to be following that. But I've got to get your take on something else. One of the headlines of the morning this morning, Steve, and that is Russian finance minister has stated that there are plans to cut all dollar holdings in the sovereign wealth fund of Russia to zero. Instead, Russia says it will invest in the euro, yuan, and gold reserves. Now, earlier this week, the Russians sent a message to the U.S. telling us that leading up to this quote-unquote summit between Biden and Putin, that the Russians were going to make Biden and the U.S. administration feel, quote, uncomfortable. So maybe this is part of that they're now going to cut all their holdings in U.S. assets. What kind of an impact is this going to have? I remember during the 2007 collapse, Henry Paulson, then Treasury Secretary Paulson, wrote a book. And in that book, he writes about the Russians and the Chinese getting together to collude, to discuss the possibility of selling all their U.S. assets to put even more pressure on the U.S. This comment this morning from the Russian minister is, to me, telling me that our adversaries are smelling weakness at the leadership in this country, and they are piling on. What is your reaction to this comment from Russia?
Yeah, and very, very valid concerns. Look, every president is tested early in their administration. We just don't know what that test is going to be. President Biden's being tested on a number of fronts, from rockets being fired into Israel, and he's siding with some of these anti-Israel allies of his in Congress, the Democrats in Congress that are siding with Palestinians, telling him not even to replenish the Iron Dome missiles. You're looking at what he's doing with Russia and China. And as you said, Russia and China want to both collude to undermine the U.S. dollar. But again, why did President Biden give a gift to Russia just days ago, where he waived any kind of penalties and sanctions against the Nord Stream pipeline? Here you got President Biden shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, killing American jobs, and hurting our relationship with China. And then he gives a gift to Russia right before Russia threatens to undermine U.S. currency. Where is President Biden on any of this? He's failing miserably these first big tests where foreign countries, our enemies, there are bad people around the world. President Trump stood up to them on every front. You didn't see any of them trying to test President Trump like this because they knew he wouldn't take it. Biden's just acting as if he doesn't even know what's going on right under his nose. These are very big concerns.
And by the way,
and it's got to be confronted.
You talk about giving a gift to Russia ahead of this summit that he's going to have. How about the gifts he's been giving to China? My sources are telling me that there will be a revised executive order on the Pentagon list for capital market sanctions, pretty much lessening the load on the Chinese sanctions that are in place for companies that are tied to the Chinese military. Why are we making it easier for China to own America? The other day, President Biden says that Xi Jinping is firmly believing that China will own America within 15 years. Well, what are you doing about it, President Biden?
It looks like he's helping them get there. I mean, guys, this is it's unbelievable. But you look at what President Trump did to confront Huawei, where our defense assets were using Huawei technology, a lot of commercial assets in America and around the world. President Trump not only blocked their ability through the Defense Department, but he was pressuring other countries when Great Britain was using their technology because they steal data.
Biden's not doing any of that.
President Biden giving away intellectual property, trying to give away the vaccine intellectual property, Maria, and you've covered this well. But he wants to give China our vaccine DNA, the technology for the mRNA that created these viruses that are saving lives. But also future viruses will be built on that same American technology. Biden wants to give that away to China. Where is his concern about American jobs and America's economy?
The Communist Party has been trying to steal the vaccine for a year. We know that from Senator Tom Cotton.
He's just going to give it to them.
They don't have to steal it. We'll just give it to them. Real quick, the crisis at the border deepens. Fox News captured video of migrants in the Rio Grande River nearly drowning. Congressman, okay? This is the Health and Human Services Commission announced it will not shut down the child migrant holding facility in Texas, despite an order from Governor Greg Abbott to do so, because the governor says there is abuse going on at that facility. Your thoughts on where we are at the border? What is Kamala Harris so afraid of? Why won't she visit the border?
Yeah, Maria, it's a great question. I've been down there myself. Many of my colleagues have been down. I went to that Donna detention facility, and it looks like child abuse by the Biden administration, the way that they're keeping those kids in cages. And by the way, Dr. Fauci even admitted that they're violating the CDC guidelines on how to treat people. Many are coming over with COVID and spreading it because they have facilities designed for 250 people. And Biden's putting over 4,000 in these facilities because he's lost control of the border. And then he just just this last 24 hours, got rid of the Remain in Mexico policy formally. That was something President Trump negotiated with Mexico to get control of our southern border. It's out of control. And it's not just South and Central America. People on the terrorist watch list from Middle Eastern countries are coming across because the border's wide open. And Kamala Harris, who was put in charge by President Biden, is trying to walk away from this thing. It's all on her lap right now, but she needs to go down there. She's yet to visit the border. I've invited her. She ought to go today. President Biden ought to go today and see just how disgraceful the treatment of these young kids is being carried out by the Biden administration.
It's absolutely disgraceful. If anybody has not seen the video of the 5-year-old boy at the border in El Paso, Google it right now. Just Google crying boy El Paso. And you will see this poor baby screaming help because the Mexican cartels took him to Texas, dumped just to get through because you have to have a 6-year-old or younger to get in, and then they just dumped him. And he's screaming help. Yep. It's a must Google.
Yeah, President Biden has
imagine if this happened under the Trump administration.
Oh. Yeah, you know that answer. But President Biden has given control of America's southern border to the drug cartels from Mexico. That's what's going on right now. Yeah. Border Patrol agents tell you what's going on and what needs to be done to stop it. Trump had gotten the border under control. Biden's got it wide open, and it's a disgrace what they're doing to these kids.
Congressman, thank you so much. We will see you soon. Steve Scalise, we appreciate your time this morning.
Great.